The British Empire once ruled a quarter of the world through reason, order, and progress. But beneath that rational surface, its knights belonged to another power. Rituals whispered in locked rooms, symbols drawn in blood and wax, and a quiet devotion to gods without names. Schoolbooks call that time the Age of Enlightenment. The people at court had another name for it, the era of calling. The story begins with a ruler on the edge of his triumph, the Emperor of Light, adored for science, feared for will. The empire stretched across oceans armed with logic and steel. But power feeds on certainty, and certainty can rot from within. One winter, the emperor fell sick with an illness no doctor could name. He slept 3 weeks, neither waking nor dying. Panic spread through the palace. Ministers invoked chemistry, prayer, magnetism. Nothing worked. Then came a stranger from abroad, a man called simply the Healer. He arrived without escort, bearing instruments made of black glass and iron threads that shimmered as if alive. They say he entered the emperor's chambers alone. By dawn, the ruler rose from bed. His pulse was steady, his eyes hollow, his first words quiet. "Do not let the sun touch me." From that day, the Healer never left his side. People cheered the miracle, but the servants noticed other signs. Mirrors turned to the wall, fires that wouldn't warm the room, and a faint humming at dusk, like 1,000 bees behind stone. Here's how it began. The Healer soon asked for help, a woman named Seraphine. Officially, she was a composer. Unofficially, she had been expelled from every academy for claiming that music was a map of creation. She believed melody could guide the will of heaven. When she touched a harpsichord, strings vibrated before her hands reached them. The emperor hired her to soothe his nerves during late-night councils. Soon, her presence became constant, her notebook always open, filled not with notes but spiraling circles. Together, the Healer and Seraphine formed what they called the Council of the Veil. Meetings began after midnight. Witnesses saw the emperor cross the courtyard in silence, his robe trailing symbols stitched in silver thread. Inside the Hall of Mirrors, torches dimmed on their own. Guards spoke of music so low it seemed to come from beneath the floor. When morning came, decrees appeared, each stamped by the imperial seal yet written in a trembling hand. At first, fortune bloomed. Epidemics ceased, mines overflowed, enemies bent the knee without battle. The emperor called it divine mathematics. The court called it luck. Then the strangeness deepened. Clocks in the palace drifted, always 3 hours slow. Paintings of ancestors grew dull overnight. During one council, lightning struck the chapel, though no storm touched the city. Seraphine merely smiled. Harmony demands imbalance before renewal. Mary, a servant forced to clean the hall after rituals, confessed later, "The air was never still. The wax smelled rotten, not sweet. The mirrors were cold even when the fire burned white. And sometimes, the emperor's reflection lagged behind him." She disappeared a week after speaking to the guards. But then everything went wrong. Within 2 years, every old advisor was dismissed. Generals swore loyalty to silence rather than crown. The Healer decided military campaigns by reading iron dust in water. Seraphine composed marches timed to phases of the moon. Coincidence followed command. Whenever the court celebrated victories, earthquakes struck remote colonies. Factories prospered, then burned without cause. Physicians died of sudden fever after examining the emperor's blood. The empire introduced new coins engraved with twin spirals. Symbols of progress, officials said. Yet no one could explain why taverns playing Seraphine's tunes reported clocks stopping at the refrain. Then came the Eastern Campaign. The emperor sought to prove reason's supremacy once and for all. Before departure, he locked himself with the council for 3 hours. The hours of silence. Witnesses say thunder rolled, though skies were clear. When the doors opened, the Healer's eyes had turned pale grey, and the emperor's speech slowed to half its pace. The army that marched bore banners with the spiral sigil, black on crimson. They won every battle, yet survivors report nights filled with whispering air and traces of salt in rivers hundreds of miles from sea. One captain wrote, "We returned victorious, but the stars were missing from the sky." He was executed for sedition. Soon after, accidents multiplied. A tower collapsed at noon under clear weather. Mapmakers drew rivers that later bent themselves into loops. Families of ministers died within hours of each other, their clocks freezing at 3 a.m. The emperor forbade funerals and demanded mirrors in churches covered with cloth. Rumor said he feared reflections might speak too much truth. And then the cover-up began. Someone inside the bureaucracy leaked sketches of the Spiro to a foreign press, describing the council as a cult controlling state policy. Overnight, the empire declared martial law to suppress spiritual fraud. The Hall of Mirrors was sealed. Yet 3 nights later, fire erupted under its doors. Witnesses on the riverbank saw blue flames dance without smoke, forming circles that refused to die even in rain. Inside, guards found no bodies, only melted mirrors arranged around a single iron chair. The emperor survived but vanished from public view. For a year, decrees appeared anonymously, written in identical looping script claimed to be his. Servants who entered his chambers never returned. When the palace reopened, the old portraits had vanished. Seraphine's music was banned, and all printed scores confiscated. The healer's existence was erased from court registries.
Scholars rewrote his title as unnamed advisor.
Anyone asking too loudly about it joined the ranks of the relocated. The empire replaced talk of enlightenment with talk of progress, newer, colder, cleaner. But the traces remained. More than a century later, renovations in the old capital unearthed lead boxes sealed into foundations. Inside, ash-stained parchments, diagrams of overlapping circles, and fragment scores of Seraphine's final piece, titled simply, Return. Every 7th bar showed no notes, only double spirals. Chemical analysis revealed traces of mercury and dried blood. The ministry dismissed it as forgery, then removed the findings from archives overnight. The researcher who announced the discovery resigned a month later, citing persistent music in dreams. Modern surveyors mapping the capital discovered that the main boulevards, aligned on satellite images, reproduced the exact spiral from the band insignia. Government spokesmen laughed, calling it an urban coincidence, yet construction projects started immediately to break the pattern. New stadiums, new roads, new towers. Still, at bird's-eye view, the geometry remains, as if the city itself refuses to forget its design. Archivists attempting to digitize the emperor's correspondence ran into blank pages, literal blankness where text should be. Under ultraviolet light, faint writing appears. Numbers, lunar phases, coordinates. When joined, they trace paths to subterranean vaults beneath the old palace. Digging those tunnels was banned in 1923 after workers reported echoing voices that said their names backward. Files from that expedition remain classified. Now let's connect the dots. The facts align too neatly. Midnight councils with mathematical ritual, laws declared on eclipses, architecture that repeats a sigil banned for heresy, archives lost in impossibly selective floods. Either coincidence runs this empire, or someone found a way to weaponize belief itself.
Logic was their language, ritual their grammar. Together they wrote history not with ink, but geometry. And the pattern persists. New banknotes carry a decorative swirl with precisely 13 turns, a perfect match for Seraphine's signature hidden in her manuscripts. Government festivals fall every 3 years on nights without moon. Statues erected in modern squares hum faintly when storm clouds gather, recording equipment detecting frequencies just above hearing. Every administration denies connection, yet every reform repeats the same 3 steps: silence, reconstruction, and erasure. So 3 questions wait unanswered. Why are the Imperial Archives sealed until 2095 if nothing dangerous sleeps inside them? Who ordered the catacombs beneath the palace cemented shut? And why does no blueprint include the entire network? And why does the skyline itself, from cathedral spires to parliament domes, trace the identical spiral once burned into the emperor's banners? The official story comforts. It tells of an empire redeemed by science, of superstition crushed under progress. It claims the healer perished honorably, Seraphine forgotten. But official stories often serve as mirrors, and mirrors lie only by omission. Because history built for peace of mind is just another charm, another ritual meant to keep whatever truth it hides from tearing through. Maybe the healer didn't vanish. Maybe he succeeded. Maybe the empire learned to embed his calculus of will into every desk, every anthem, every seal of approval. Look around. Currency engraved with spirals, an anthem of 7 ascending notes, an obsession with measurement masking fear of the immeasurable. The Council of the Veil might have burned, but its pattern governs still, unseen, perfect, cold. So decide for yourself. Coincidence or design? Light or reflection? If power is geometry, then we are all standing inside its circle. Write in the comments which buried empire to unearth next. Subscribe if the clean lines of textbooks start to look more like spiral chains than straight paths. Because until the archives open and the last mirror shatters, the whisper of the veil still rules the empire that never truly died.